everybody. My name is R'Aliza Sperling. I am the director of HerTorah, which is a project of SVIVAH. SVIVAH is about creating a more nourishing communal faith experience for Jewish women, where we define both Jewish and women very broadly. If you want to be with us, we want you with us, and welcome. We love that we're multi-generational and diverse in background and affiliations. We come together in celebration and support of women, our strengths, our unique perspectives, our ways of contributing to the world. HerTorah gathers together Jewish women of all different backgrounds to learn together, to talk to one another, to speak about things that we normally wouldn't talk about through our learning of Torah and Jewish texts. Thank you to those who make HerTorah possible. Thank you to Ariella Mortkowitz and SVIVAH. Thank you to Yeshivat Maharat. And thank you to the Aviv and Covenant Foundations for their faith in HerTorah to create a unique way of learning in community. Usually for HerTorah, we gather together. Pre-COVID, it was in person. During COVID, it's on Zoom. And now during the month of Elul, we're having a series of conversations with wonderful, thoughtful Jewish educators and leaders so that they can help us move from this time, August, summer, where we're not really thinking about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, into more of a high holidays mindset. And we've lined up many wonderful speakers and teachers to talk to throughout the month of Elul. This month, I am so sorry, Ariella. Can you just fix that? Okay, today, I'll start again. Okay, today I am so excited to introduce you to the wonderful, fabulous Rabbi Shira Stutman, who I've known for many years and whose friendship I really treasure. Rabbi Shira Stutman is writing a book on the blessing of interfaith couples and is co-host of a podcast launching in October 2021. She was named one of America's most inspiring rabbis by the Jewish Forward, among other awards. She also teaches nationwide about how to build a welcoming and diverse Jewish community. She graduated from the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, where she was a Wexner Graduate Fellow. Welcome, Rabbi Shira.
Thank you so much, Elisa. It's so great to see your face, even through the interwebs.
And yours too. So, Rabbi Shira, this year has been a crazy year. I feel like we might be saying that about every year come Rosh Hashanah. Wow, this year has been a crazy year, but this has been an especially crazy year. And we've been really separated. We haven't been able to come together. I think a lot of people were looking forward to coming together for Rosh Hashanah this year. And it looks like that may or may not happen. We'll see. And I was hoping that you could kind of give us some perspective. What has it been like to be a rabbi over this past year? And what can you give us to strengthen ourselves?
This has been a year of transition for me as well. As you well know, Elisa, I left my job after 11 years there. And so I'm going to try to decenter my own story from this year, but it's hard. I do feel like this year has been, in some ways, like the way I would imagine floating through space. There is a lack of groundedness, like quite literally, and yet you are connected through certain ways to the nourishment that you need, if only you sort of can take advantage of it. I think there is a feeling of being lost, but at the same time, there's the witnessings of miracles, whether it's a miracle of the creation of a vaccine or the miracles of the ways that we have witnessed communities actually standing with each other, even if they're physically far apart. This year has been filled with moments of awe for me. And I know also for members of the community that I help to lead as well. I mean, just last week, we had 16 young adults. They at Sixth and I had 16 young adults who had been studying to become adult bar mitzvahs, adult b'nai mitzvah, over Zoom for 9 months. They learned how to read Hebrew. They learned how to study Torah. They learned how to teach Torah. They learned how to read Torah, how to lead davening. That's a miracle too. And it's a miracle akin to like being able to see the earth in its entirety for the first time because you witness God's creations in action. So I think that this has been a year in some ways that has been in some ways has been like unlike any other that I've lived through, but in other ways, like any other moment of my life, if I just pause for a second to discern the miracles, they're actually there to be witnessed.
I'm trying to absorb that. I think we're so caught up in the day to day that sometimes we don't take a step back and say, "Oh yeah, there is a vaccine. Oh yeah, that really is a huge miracle, and that it came so soon." You're right, and I think it's hard to see it.
I mean, especially as we're like heading right into the Delta, right? Into the Delta, but eponymous, like it means change and we're like still in it. And but I think that that's only like sort of writ large what all of life is, which is forcing ourselves, even in the midst of the difficulties, to see the beauty. And that's, I think, one of the things that Judaism asks of us that's so incredibly important is to just live in the mess. To live in the mess all at the same time of beauty and miracles and awe and just like crap, right? Like really bad things that are happening. People who we love that we can't see, people who we love are dying, people who have been vaccinated it's like there's terrible things that are happening. As we sit here together, there was an earthquake in Haiti earlier today, and Afghanistan is falling to the Taliban. Like this is all also happening, and it's terrible. And I had dinner with my family tonight, right? And that was beautiful. And it was a miracle, that we got to sit and we got to laugh. And my dog is sitting at my feet. Like it's all true. Even in COVID, it's all true.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about how moving from COVID will give us a better perspective on our lives and our choices, that we'll start making new choices because we lived through a time when we really felt so existentially confronted.
Yeah.
And I think that might add a lot of pressure to our Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because it kind of feels like, how come I haven't transformed my life? How come I'm not perfect now that I really felt my mortality? And I'm wondering if you can tell us how you think about teshuvah, or and the way that I think about teshuvah is not really repentance, but kind of figuring out where you're supposed to be going and reorienting yourself to that. And I know you did that in your personal life, your professional life this year. Can you share with us how one goes about doing that?
Yeah. So I'll tell a story about teshuvah. And it's a story of a couple that I love. I've rabbied to this couple for 10 years. They are beautiful, beautiful family, 3 children. And the couple's been working on their marriage for a long time. And this was the year that they decided to split up. And they had to go through the process of figuring out how to split up in with a sense of holiness. And I've been just like, I am both like in it with them, but of course I'm also a voyeur, right? Because I'm not in this marriage, I'm not in this family. And as I've been thinking about Elul and my own work that I need to do, I think about this couple. Thank God I'm not going to be splitting up with my partner this year, but God willing, but I've been thinking about how imperfect teshuvah is, right? Like the end of the story I wanted to tell you, R'Aliza, right, was like, they worked so hard, they both did teshuvah, and they righted all the wrongs they had done to each other, and now it's like happily ever after. They found the glass shoe that fits, and they kiss. but it's not, right? They're gonna have different paths, and yet they're still working at it. And that's like, I've been thinking a little bit about like the bullshit of perfect teshuvah. I mean, I'm sorry, you can beep out the curse word if you need to, but I just think, because Jews have this moment of focus on teshuvah around the Yamim Noraim, and especially Yom Kippur, there's this intensity to it that is neither real nor sustainable. And in the Talmud, we actually learn that, like, what is perfect teshuvah, right? Like, perfect teshuvah is like, you have the opportunity to do the exact same thing with the exact same woman. This is the male rabbis, or maybe like the exact same woman, the exact same place, and you don't do it again. But it's like, how often does that happen, that you really mamash, that you actually have the opportunity to do the exact same thing with the exact same person in the exact same place? It's really like, teshuvah is you're just like stumbling along, and maybe you don't do it again next time when you could. Or maybe you do it next time, but you are a little bit kinder about it. It's like, for me, teshuvah this year is all about doing the work and not allowing the flawedness of it all, the difficulty of it all, the impossibility of it all to be a stopper, to have it really just keep on doing the work, tiny step by tiny step by tiny step. And I'm inspired by the way this couple is really trying to do that.
Yeah, I think sometimes we hear these stories about people who do this great tshuva, and so we think it's all or nothing. We think, like, if I want to be, I can't just be a better person, I have to be a great, amazing person, right? And if I just go step by step, that's not enough. And I agree with you that that's such a profound message, and it's so important to hear.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's that a kind of, sorry, I think that's either my daughter or my dog.
Great. I love them both.
I think that that's such an important message to hear. And I wonder, oh, it's a dog. And I wonder if that's a message that somehow we get taught, or just something that we internalize just from being in 21st century America, like we just have to be great. Right? Is there such thing as good enough?
Yeah, right. There's like, right, the good enough teshuvah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great drash for someone who needs to write a drash for the high holidays, right? Like, I'm thinking about like the sort of the American approach to cold turkey, and I do think there are some things that I understand you have to go cold turkey on if you are, addicted to alcohol or drugs. I don't, as I understand it, there's not a great way to sort of taper yourself off. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if teshuvah, I mean, you can make the commitment to do your best, and then you'll mess up, and then you'll do your best again, and then you'll mess up again. And then there's this great, oh my gosh, I wish I had thought to look it up before we talked, but there's this great, I think it's a midrash about Joseph and Potiphar's wife, and the midrash teaches, I hope it's a midrash, that actually, the story goes that Potiphar's wife comes to Joseph, and she sort of sexually comes on to him, and he rejects her, and that's why he gets thrown in the dungeon. But the midrash teaches that he and she had actually made a plan to be together, that he was in on it. He was in on the whole thing. And he's like watching her walk closer to him and closer to him and closer to him. And he's like, I can still say no, it's not too late. And so what actually happened was she was surprised because he was supposed to be sexually intimate with her. He had agreed to it, and then he decided to say no. And I think like that moment of like, it's never too late to try again. It's never too late to right our wrongs. If we mess up the first time, it's never too late to keep on trying and keep on trying. And yeah, maybe it's because I'm set in Washington, you're in New York City. There's so many people who are sort of like type A and oriented toward, you don't just run around the block, you run a marathon. You don't just take a yoga class, you become a yoga teacher, right? You don't, like, everything has to be, and it's just sort of like, I don't know if life really works that way. And for those of us for who we think it does, it might be too much.
Yeah, I love that idea. I wish you were still giving high holiday sermons. Yes, I love this idea. The Good Enough Teshuvah by Rabbi Shira Stutman. I
I
love
know, seriously. I'm going to Google that. I'm sure someone's written a sermon about that.
it. So we only have a few minutes left. I wanted to ask you, I know, if you could share a piece of Torah, a thought that you want us to take with us into the new year.
Yeah, yeah. And I just happen to have it like right here at my desk.
My
It's
goodness, how convenient.
I know. It's a thank you note I got from one of my best friends. I bought her this stationery for her birthday, and she sent me a thank you note. And I just want to read the first two sentences.
Mhm.
She wrote, Shira, I love you so much. I wish we could have more adventures together. And then she went on, what was about to talk about. And I called her. I actually got to see her. I saw her and I said, my first gut was like, your thank you note is backwards. Like usually we end the thank you note with, I love you, right? Yeah. My family, we say I love you to each other all the time, but always at the end, when we're saying goodbye, always. Mm-hmm. And like, she said it in the beginning. She said, I love you in the beginning. And it just like, it took me back. She was starting with the vulnerability, right? She was starting with the openness. Like she was standing there with open arms, like waiting for me to step into them. And it took me back. And then I started to tear up. I think that too often we think, we'll have time. We'll have time to say I love you at the end. And I just like, this year, I just want to say I love you in the beginning. And I think about that because, so much ink has been spilled about why Rosh Hashanah is before Yom Kippur. Like, why do we have the New Year before we have the Day of Atonement? And to me, like, that's it. Rosh Hashanah, we're saying, I love you. I want to have more adventures together. We're saying it to Hashem, right? We're saying it to the community. We're saying it to ourselves. And then once our arms are like wide open and we're ready for the year, like then at that moment, then we can start to do the harder work. And, the coda to the story is that the friend who wrote this is dying. Like she's a young woman who's our age. And I pray to God, literally every day I pray to God, she will still be here this time next year, but it doesn't look great. And so it's like, yeah, of course she's going to start with the I love you, right? Of course she's going to start with the adventures because we need to have them now. We need to enter the new year now, and we need to do it with our arms wide open and saying I love you in words and in deed to all of the people that we love in this world. By the way, not only including Hashem, but to a certain extent including ourselves, right? And love of self and how we are in the world and how we care for our own selves in the world. And like once we have that orientation, only then can we do the arguably harder work of Yom Kippur.
Wow. Thank you, Rabbi Shira. I have to say, I love you and I love your family. And I love everything that you do in the world. So thank you. And thank you for inspiring me to tell you right now. Oh.
That's right. I love you too, R'Aliza. And I love your family. And I've loved your husband for about 30 years now. So been one of my best friends. So yeah, this is it's meaningful that we get to teach together. Yeah. One day I look forward to interviewing you for SVIVAH.
Sounds great. So I want to wish you, Rabbi Shira Stutman, a Shana Tova, a happy and healthy new year to you, your family, your friends, and Boaz, your dog.
I'll tell Boaz you say that.
Thank you. And I can't wait to learn more with you. To everybody who's listening today, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview my friend, Rabbi Shira Stutman. Please, if you'd like to hear more of our interviews with our fantastic educators during the month of Elul, go to SVIVAH, www.svivah.org, and sign up for our emails. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.